Okay, here we are playing Unhappy King Charles, and I've been away for him a little while because I was playing No Peace Without Spain with my wife. Led me to think about the game, and I may make some comparisons in the final look through of it. Because for some reason I like this a little better, but it's hard to justify why. Anyway, let's take a look at, it may just be a matter of personal taste, wishing that when it comes down to it, Spanish succession were covered in more detail. Let's take a look at what the situation is at the end of the turn, because there was a check for victory, and I kind of ignored that when I was doing my last video. So, the Royalists have London for the first time. They have a chance at accumulating their points for their automatic victory. What they need for that is London and 3 regions under control. Well, it actually turns out they have 2. They have the North, and they have Wales under their control. I believe they have the North. Let me make sure I got the count right there. They only need 8. They have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. But that may change. Remember, we were cutting Wales off, and I'm worried they may have lost control of the Welsh area. No, they couldn't. They couldn't have. We've got a way in through Lord Herbert here. So just because this was cut off, it doesn't mean that's going to be cut off. So, as things stand right now, the Royalists are still in fairly good shape. However, they need to do that for 2 consecutive turns, and they didn't quite make it this turn. That's kind of their hope for winning the game. It's possible they might win it just on victory points as well at the end of the game. We'll see. But anyway, we'll do the housekeeping and come back after all that's taken care of. So the Royalists again got boned out of not being able to play a PC marker for their free expansion. The parliamentaries and pushed forward towards Truro. If they get that, there's no southern replacements at all. It's going to be hard for the way I'm looking at the Royalists with that optional rule. As long as the Earl of Forth's unit is here, I can't build those Cornish units, so I've got to get Bath back. So the Royalist goal at this point is to gain one of, or maybe both, Midlands and Southern regions. And they've done that, or set up for that, by getting Rupert and Maurice back on the board again with 1 unit each. Whereas the parliamentarians have increased Waller, who's outside of his normal area of existence, which gives him potential for more desertions. Willoughby got some additional troops, which could bring, say, Manchester into play. Can't help Essex, though. And the Royalists are going to take the jump on the gun here and try to move first in order that they can, they have the Irish card. Well, that doesn't really help them. Yeah, they're gonna force the parliamentaries to go first. I was thinking, I could play and grab them, but I can't grab them. I've got to play them first, and that doesn't protect Rupert at all. So I'd rather let the Royalists make their move, see what they do first. Okay, onward. Well, Waller and his parliamentarian forces have been concentrating on sieging London. They got it up to a 5 bombardment. On the same time, though, Rupert's gone up and defeated Essex. So it's kind of like, even if the Royalists succeed in their goals of swinging a couple of areas over, London may well fall to Waller, and there's not a lot I can do about that. Waller's got a significant sized force. Rupert's got more with the Irish, but I just didn't have the troops near London to do anything about it. On the other hand, maybe I'm gaining some power base in the center for the Royalists that'll allow them to, have a more even mix as to where they're sitting right now. It should be a parliamentary turn up next. Oh, we swept through, and actually it was really unlikely that Waller was going to succeed in taking London. They only had 1 card left and needed 6 points off of it. They happened to roll a 6 and took it. So there goes the Royalist plan, down the drain, really. On the other hand, the Royalists have continued on laying siege here at Gloucester against Massey, which, is kind of an interesting situation. There was also a trade-off of things. Control markers here, see if, well, if there's a way, of course, with Rupert's army up here, this is all in supply, but if there's a way of cutting the Royalist supply from South Wales off, that the Royalists ended up winning the little fight for. So now we end up, well, we got the blockade over here to take care of, and we actually have to roll that before we go to the desertion phase. And that's a 3, that's enough to take Newcastle, and that falls over to 11. He succeeds in grabbing that. And now, really, we're just worrying about the desertion levels and then counting up the end of turn stuff. Alright, so now we're in an interesting position. If you noticed before, the deck was gone. Well, I've shuffled 2 more alt history cards in, and we've got the new model army, which is going to be assigned right at the beginning. Essentially, I've got to figure out how exactly that gets dealt out. But basically, the parliamentary player ends up with it. He may have to trade a card for it. I don't remember quite how the mechanism is in play there. But after having gone through this, I noticed one thing. Maybe I had made a mistake. There was a Royalist space down here that I could fill this turn, so I probably missed it last turn. But the Royalist control in the south, all gone again because of the fall of London. As long as they had London, they could extend themselves here. But now they don't have a supply source down here. They don't have an army down there, so they're gone. All right, great. I start to think, okay, well, I'm going to start worrying about winning the game here. As the parliamentaries, I only have 3 turns. What exactly do I have to do? And it's a lot. It's more than I think I can. And that's one of my fears. I look here, I count up the area points I need. I get twice the number of controlled regions plus the number of economic infrastructure, and it has to add up to at least 12. Okay, that's not so terribly bad. I've got a couple of regions. I can probably get control of the south. I definitely have the east, maybe the Midlands. That's 6 points. How many areas? 7, Wow, it's looking kind of tough. It may be a hard fight. And then I think about it and say, wait a minute. Every other time, the other time that I played, it was pretty easy to destroy the support that the Royalists have. And that's actually what I'm going to have to do. When I count the Royalist pieces, I'm around 23 or 24. I'm almost there. It's going to be a lot easier to try to isolate Royalist locations because I have this supremacy on the board militarily than it would be to make all the actions necessary to gain control of stuff. So I'm going to try to knock the Royalists below their limit. Now we got to go to the new model army situation, and that gets baked into the deck. How does it go? The last card was dealt to the Parliament. Okay, so Parliament. What's really going to happen is Parliament just gets the new model army card here because I'm at the beginning of a turn. Because there's no exchange ability. It's not really covered completely here, but that's what I'm assuming. And that everything else, well, they each get their handful of cards. What happens with the new model army? Yeah, that's a good question. A whole bunch of stuff. Really, the whole parliamentary structure of their army changes, and some of these local notables, etc., are going to disappear. I may have gone into it a little bit before. Among other things, though, Tom Fairfax becomes the Lord General, which allows him to command a large force and makes him no longer a regional general. That is probably the biggest single effect. And we bring a lot of new personalities in. Some of the old ones are retired. People like Essex, and Waller just disappear, I think. So, and some of the local notables turn into regional generals instead of local notables. The game changes flavor in a lot of ways. It becomes easier to isolate things because you don't have those local notables, which are kind of tough to dig out. All right, well, we'll get into that, and it doesn't have to be played, it's my understanding. It's up to the parliamentary player when he wants to trigger those changes. I've been seeing a seesaw back and forth. It's hard to decide to play the new model army. it shakes things up so much that there's kind of this feeling, I can take some advantages. So the Royalists actually have been building troops up, but then clubmen came and knocked some of those troops out. The Irish, actually, that were still kicking around, because that really is a permanent loss. Then Calendar comes down and starts sieging things. The goal here, grab the north, try to convert the north completely over to a parliamentary side, because if enough locations fall, if we get enough of an advantage, well, the Royalists are in trouble. And the Royalists come back with Graham, Earl of Montrose, removing 2 Parliament strategy cards, which is going to hurt their hand here. And Calendar and up to 2 of his brigades are removed. Well, there goes that quick siege that just did not last there. And they'll go here. But I've got to grab 2 cards at random now. If one of those cards is the big card, it takes effect anyway. Well, neither of the cards was the new model army, but it was a couple of their operations that the Parliament player had, and that's painful. So instead, they're throwing the new model army out to have some reaction capability afterwards. And we'll start taking care of it. Well, first, we're going to be removing all these counters, etc. So I'm going to show you what the world looks like after this card has been fully played. Okay, because most of the parliamentary units on the board were non-veteran, they kind of got off easy on this conversion. In the game that I played, what I had on the board were veterans, and then it takes from veterans off the board after you remove everything on the board. Well, here, 4 brigades got removed off the board, and I think only 1 veteran was taken. Veterans are given priority here. Then we got some new forces. The Lord General's here between Newcastle and Rupert, ready to become a real power in a way that Tom Fairfax was unable to, because there were no northern troops left. Well, now he's got a pile of new model army troops there. Cromwell shows up down in London. Not much for him to face or do, but that's where he ends up. We have people like Massey showing up down here with a counter finally. With the option to bring this general points in, and you'll see Waller and Essex, all the people we're used to, who've been doing a pretty good job, have been removed. And there's kind of the, geez, how fair is that? You know, to some extent it was their incompetence that, or perhaps some bad events that really got them removed from Parliament. The Parliament itself felt perhaps that they were not doing a sufficient job. But here, it felt like they actually were doing a pretty good job. Anyway. For the Royalists, a little bit of difference too. We get Gerard down here instead of whoever was there. And he's going to be subordinated to Maurice at this point, if he can. Yeah. Just to allow me to move 2 units instead of 1. Gerard's not bad. It's just I don't want 2 1-point units necessarily spread out in there. All right, well, for whatever it's worth, the parliamentarians don't have a lot of cards left after this. The Royalists have a few. They might be able to do something with it. Well, the Lord General is beaten back by Prince Rupert on an attack. It was really an even attack. Not much happened there. Maurice is down here besieging Bristol, even with the penalties due to the naval support that the Parliament has for that. He's still getting, he's managed to get 4 points on it. He still held the same whole card. It was a hard debate whether to throw that for just some sort of conversion somewhere and hold on to a 2-point operations. But then when I thought about it, I thought, you know, I can bring Charles in on any stack I got, operate him, and have that extra bonus. That's a better card for me, especially if it's, you know, an end of game type situation where I've got to risk a lot on something. I would rather have that extra bonus just as a ledge. So since I'm holding it for that kind of purpose, since I'm not trying to eke out every point at this moment, I do want to keep that card. I think it's going to be valuable. All right. And we got such pleasant neighbors around here. I guess we're on to the blockade. There isn't one. This will be blockaded at some point. And then we go on to the power base and the desertions and such now. And then to the turn end. Okay, well, all that cost on the siege, and it's not too unlikely. I rolled essentially a 6, which is as far as you can go, other than a roll of a 5, which would have allowed me to save that siege. All areas with a PC marker, an enemy PC marker, are going to lose. Well, Maurice had to take the loss on that. And actually, he didn't take it. He took the bigger unit that wasn't under his command, Gerard's unit, because he didn't want 2 generals. Maurice would have stayed there in command of Gerard if he lost his forces, which isn't a useful positioning for me. I'd rather have units everywhere. So I had to take a veteran unit, which is kind of painful. On the other side, Lord General here caused losses in his area where he was. Levin back here took a loss. So he's no longer going to be able to do what he was considering, which was sieging York. Lots and lots of different, hard calls everywhere on this kind of thing. But pushing forward into late 1645, we get one more naval action there. And it's really at the wind down stage. As far as I can see, the parliamentarians have 2 shots at victory. One of them is, I think, hard. It's gaining the controls. The other one's trying to cut off supplies where the royalists are. That may be a little bit more palatable and possible. Basically, things like Wales and the north look a little risky. And maybe we can cut them down. Let's see what the number is. Hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. I'm only at 22. I've got to be at 23 at the beginning of the turn. I may be done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This isn't going to be in supply anyway. I don't know why that's still there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay, so they are going to survive this turn, it looks like, because the only thing that's going to collapse is this. But they're damn close to just losing the game at this juncture. However, it's nowhere near the victory conditions that the end of the game would require for the parliamentarians. I've seen some games where I see this kind of dynamic in play, where it's actually easier to win the automatic victory. And in most of them, I really kind of harsh on that idea. In this one, I'm not so sure it's such a big deal, because honestly, I think if you can't cause the royalists to collapse, victory is actually going to be less likely. So it may actually fit here. And 30 Years' War, I think, was another one with the same dynamic that I had some discussion about. I don't remember what I said. I never remember what I said. Anyway, we'll load this one up, and we got just 2 more turns left.